Salvador de Bahia. First capital of Brazil, it is now the third largest city in Latin America's most populated country.
The Portuguese went to get Africans, and they imported more than 5 million Africans.
Strongly tied to its African roots, it is the home of an ethnic mix that characterizes the country. Brazilians call it their cultural capital.
Bahia right now is the #1 tourist destination domestically, so it's definitely the space to chill.
Nestled between the Atlantic Ocean and South America's largest bay, it is suffering the consequences of a long-neglected, almost absent urban planning.
The problem here is the lack of planning.
Although Brazil is about to become the world's 5th largest economy, Salvador sometimes has the appearance of a chaotic metropolis. The charisma of its people, however, quickly makes us forget its little faults. As its name suggests, Salvador de Bahia sits in a majestic bay of over 1,000 square kilometers on the Atlantic coast.
It's called La Bahia de Todos os Santos, the Bay of All the Saints, because it was discovered, or so they say, by Amerigo Vespucci, who was the cartographer of the King of Portugal. They arrived on November 1st, on All Saints' Day. When people came by boat, they entered through the bay, and Itaparica is a part of the entrance of the bay. Everyone goes through here, because the island is an extension of Salvador. Salvador wouldn't exist without this island. Bahia and the island of Itaparica make a happy couple. When Brazil obtained its independence from Portugal, there were Portuguese who attacked Itaparica and Salvador and who stayed here. There have been many wars here, and the population is largely made up of descendants of slaves, a mix of Indians and Africans. To protect the city, people began to fight here, on this side, and the fight ended over there on the other side. So the two places are linked to one another.
Salvador's history is also Brazil's history. It was in fact the country's capital for over 200 years.
When the Portuguese came here and developed the cultivation of sugarcane, they wanted slaves. They wanted labor to work the fields. They first tried with the Indians. The Indians of South America weren't builders like those from Mexico or Colombia. They didn't make large monuments. They were nomads. They were farmers. And they didn't accept slavery. They began to flee inland. And they were weak and sick all the time. A flu virus could decimate them. They weren't fit for a life of slavery. But the trade of Africans was already very present in Europe. So the Portuguese went to get Africans, and they imported, as some historians say, more than 5 million Africans. They came to Bahia, which was the port of entry for Africans. That's why it is called the Black Rome.
The jewel of Portuguese colonization, Brazil is the world's largest Lusophone country. But the Portuguese spoken here is distinct from the one heard in Portugal.
But here, there was something else. There was a lot of mixing between Indians and Africans. So the language is really a mix, a language of miscegenation. It's as mixed as the population itself. This country has received many immigrants. Bahia is black, but if we go up the coast, we'll see an Indian predominance. There's always been a lot of Portuguese, with many other Europeans and Africans. We had immigrants from Germany, Italy, Japan. It's created such a rich mixture. Today, can we even say what the Brazilian people are? There has never been an ethnic unity. In Bahia, for example, there are 14 or 15 different ethnicities. The African roots are here.
Salvador is a major hub of black culture. 80% of its population is of African descent. Aware of this unique cultural reality, Bahia has been targeting its tourism advertising on cities with large African American populations, like New York, Philadelphia, and Atlanta.
We've preserved African traditions that the United States haven't preserved and that no longer exist in Africa. So we say to those African Americans, we have the same roots. Come see, we've retained something you haven't. I showed an old slave home and capoeira dancers to Canadian friends who told me, we've traveled extensively in the US. We saw cities where there are many African Americans, but we've never seen anyone show something that belonged to slave ancestors with so much pride. Even if they have a history of blues, jazz, and everything linked to music, here we've preserved it all, despite the suffering. And we're proud to show it. And I've met Europeans, Belgians, and French who told me, if we want to study Africa, we go to Bahia, because in Africa, often we can't find the history. History here is found on every street when people dance capoeira. It's in the music you hear when you walk through Old Salvador. The tom-toms are truly an African heritage. It's also in the sculptures on the waterfront. They are the orishas. You can see the sculptures of Yemanja, the siren goddess of the water, everywhere around the bay. History is also present in the culinary arts. Everything you eat here in Salvador de Bahia and Itaparica, it really represents the African influence. And there are women dressed in African costumes that sell pastries.
The acarajes, made of beans and fried in palm oil, are sold by the Baianas, a true anchor of local neighborhood life. Dressed in their mandatory traditional clothing, they appear the same today as they did 100 years ago.
Women who sell these in the streets have a very close link with religion, because the pastries are an offering. It's the food of the goddess of thunder. They wear necklaces that represent religion. These are the necklaces of the gods. It's truly a representation of religion in the culinary arts. That's Yemanja. This is Yemanja because it's blue. She's the goddess of water.
The Baianas aren't the only element that outlines the African heritage in Brazilian culture. Religious festivals dot the city's calendar, peaking in January by the procession of Senhor do Bonfim. The cultural heritage of the African slaves has been preserved through time, passed down through the generations. Capoeira is also omnipresent in the city's bustling daily life. In the same way they did for capoeira, slaves disguised their religious practices by giving their deities the faces of Catholic saints venerated by the Portuguese colonizers. Today, with over 1,500 candomblé temples called terreiros, religion remains at the heart of daily life.
Capoeira is a little bit of a hard definition. It's deemed to be very many things: sport, singing, dancing, playing, and a fight. It's for sure. Some people dare to call it martial art, so it's all of that.
And there's a lot of complicity and collaboration between the two, what do you call them?
Capoeiristas. Yeah. It's not a competition. In events or in the rodas, they all come together in a nice way, you know. Everything is round movement, so you go down, you dodge the movements and you attack. There's lots of jokes and good humor in it. Sometimes, for example, you mark the other saying that I could sweep you off the floor, but I don't do it, you know. I just showing you that it was your little weakness there.
What's a roda?
The roda is the fun part of the capoeira. Everybody looks forward for the roda because you practice repetitions and series of movements before in the class, and it's kind of boring. So people look forward to play in the roda. So the roda is a round, a big round thing where in one corner you have the capoeiristas playing and singing, feeding the energy of the roda. There was the sugar plantations. The senzala. Senzala was the place, like a big building, where they kept the slaves for the night and where they lived. Many senzalas and places had low ceilings. So the capoeira Angola, it's very low on the ground. People rarely stand up. They don't stand up whatsoever. It's because of the ceiling of the senzalas. Many times it was very low. They couldn't fight, of course. Nothing, you know, violent or that could threat the Portuguese stronghold, you know, the domination. But that's the thing. They were practicing a fight, but camouflaged as a dance. The Portuguese colonizers would see that and would say, that's okay, it's a cultural manifestation, because they were allowed to practice their music and their religion, that kind of stuff.
Capoeira started here, but now it's everywhere.
Correct.
How did it spread?
Masteries and students went abroad, and the last 20 years that I saw capoeira spreading around, from Israel to China to Africa, Mexico, was amazing. I couldn't have imagined that outcome.
Capoeira turned out to be one of the best ambassadors of Brazilian culture.
Yes, capoeira is a huge tool because you have that sense of belonging to a group, of belonging to something. It's a culture of itself. So many students, for example, Americans, they say, hey man, I'm singing this for 6 months. I want to know what it means. You know, I'm tired of saying words that I don't know. So they start to learn in Portuguese, and that history is inevitable. Just by the singing, you learn a lot, you know. Why is this lyrics so spread out? What does it say? Oh, it's because of this and this and that, you know, a dispute between masters in the past. So it's a vital part, I think, in Brazilian culture, you know.
Fascinated by African culture, American John Wesley Days Jr. worked for the UN in 18 African countries. But it was the charms of Salvador that seduced him and convinced him to settle down and start a family. How does Salvador compare to other cities in Brazil?
Salvador is the mother of Brazil. It all started here. So there's a certain pride that the people have here in the culture. There's a certain way that people live here. I think it is different from all of the rest of Brazil. It has the history and the tradition and the culture like no other place. And even when the South industrialized and the Northeast became sort of like a backwater, they still maintain the pride in their culture here. Some people might say it's parochial here, but I would say the Bahia really is representative of the first start of Brazil in its truest essence.
As a foreigner, did you have a hard time adapting to the pace of the city?
No, I immediately fell in love with the pace of the city. I fell in love with the hot, the sweat, the density. There's a lot of people here. People think, oh, Carnival is when everybody's together. No, Carnival is every day. On the bus, walking down the street, you're always rubbing up against people and bumping into people. So I fell in love with that. But I will mention that adapting as a North American wasn't always easy because the people here, as I mentioned before, are very proud of their culture. And so they don't make it easy for anybody just to come in and, you know, be Baiano. No, you have to earn your place. And even though I'm married and have children here, I still am in a process of adaptation after many years of living here.
What are the rites of passage?
What are the rites of passage? That's a good question. I think enduring some of the hardships that the daily society that everybody has to endure here. When you gain fluency in the language and you gain that oral part of the communication here, then you start to get much more respected, much more open reception for you here. You can be a PhD in cultural studies, and if you can't speak the language and you don't know the right word, you know, le mot juste, then you will have problems here. But you can have no education and have papo and have a certain way of speaking, and everything opens up for you. Everything can be given to you.
When you learn to joke in another language, you've arrived.
I agree with that. That's definitely the case here. And the people here love good, lively language. They love exchange. People who are closed and don't open themselves and don't speak have problems here.
So everything runs smoothly here?
Everything runs smoothly in a circular way here. Nothing goes direct. If you notice, as we drive, there are a lot of circular routes. Nothing goes direct, the way we think of them as North Americans. I think that everything does run smoothly because there's a certain way that people like to live here, and they maintain that way, and I don't think they're gonna break that for things like efficiency or other sort of values that we hold in North America. And it's good because it keeps us as the North Americans, and it keeps them as the South American.
I imagine you learn a lot about patience.
Yes, patience and tolerance, for sure. There's another pace of life here. And so you learn to adapt to the pace, and you learn to allow yourself to dance with the society. This is a dancing society beyond just capoeira and samba and all the other forms that we know about. It's the way you live here as well. Salvador has many ladera, hills everywhere, so you never go straight up the hill. You always have to like sort of go up a little bit to the side, you walk a little bit this way, and then you sort of say hi to somebody over there, and you walk back over, let's go back over this way, and you walk. And then it takes a little longer, but you know, it actually, you get there and you feel a little better, you feel a little less tired. Are you feeling less tired?
I'm feeling great.
It's part of what we were talking about before, the sort of rites of passage. There are certain challenges that you have in Bahia, and you confront those challenges with a smile and being creative with them. And so if you have to go up this ladera every day, and you know you have to go up it, then you're going to start to find a nice way to make that hill your friend.
More appealing.
More appealing, that's right. Part of your daily life. One distinct difference between Rio and other places and Salvador is that all of the communities have names. And people identify with those names, whereas some people in other places call it a favela or just call it a poor area. But here they really try to make sure that the communities have names, and people represent those communities. If you look at the map of Salvador, all the communities have a certain cultural representation or have a party or a street festival or some type of thing that represents their communities. All the festivals that lead up to Carnival, how they're organized, it's a series of communities having a small party before the center of the city has its big party. So it's socially organized in that sense. Even if these were communities that started out as invasions or squatted areas where people from the interior came and took over and built homes, they still eventually become neighborhoods recognized by the city. So they are neighborhoods, they are communities.
The district of Liberdade illustrates Salvador's haphazard urban planning. Largest black neighborhood in the country, it is the cradle of Afro-Brazilian pride. Community spirit runs extremely high among its residents. How would you describe the general vibe of the city?
Electric. It's a city that never stops. It's a city that's always in motion and always happening.
Are there a lot of paradoxes in this city? I find it speedy but slow at the same time.
Speedy but slow. Yeah, slow because it's a port town. Port towns have that sort of lazy feel to it on the water, but also port towns bring a lot of people from all over the world, and Salvador is a place that brings people from all parts to come and enjoy and to really be part of the culture. It's a very welcoming culture at the same time. You never know what's going to happen here. And at the same time, you never know what's going to happen here. You know you're going to be sent on an intense journey living here. Routines are often broken, and new human patterns of relations are always forming in ways that are surprising. And so it's a city that keeps you alive. Most of the Bahian northern coast is now being bought up by Cariocas, people from Rio, people from Minas Gerais, people from Sao Paulo. They come here to vacation. Bahia right now is the #1 tourist destination domestically. So we know that people come internationally here, but they're coming from the interior of the country here to spend their holidays, January, February, Carnival, Christmas. So it's definitely the space to chill.
Salvador's coveted geographical location has its advantages. How about 80 kilometers of public beaches? Bahians relax, play, and virtually live on the beach. For a city with modest means, this adds greatly to the overall standard of living. But developing a city around coastlines like these can be a bit complicated. While cities like Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro have grown significantly over time, it's a different story here. Salvador has far fewer directions to expand in.
Salvador is a cape that goes like this. You have the Atlantic Ocean on the other side of the fort, and here you have the entrance of the bay. And the Atlantic part, you have originally sand dunes and rainforests all over. Well, when you go inside the bay, you'll see that it's going to change. Half a mile from here, you start to see that the coast start to climb until the place where the city really began. Because around here is too flat, too exposed. Salvador was a planned city, it was a fortress that began as a capital of the whole Portuguese adventure. Salvador was based on the Renaissance point of view of making cities. And you have the lower part, the upper part, a swamp that protects from the east. You must understand that Salvador was thought to be a fortress. When the Portuguese were outside their homeland, they have to protect themselves. The city had to have this character of military building, military function. So the lower and the upper point of view, when you see the city from the sea, is very clear. You have a port, you have a thin lower part that gives support for this port, and the upper part of the city, you have the main administrative and the main commerce and the main fortresses also.
The division between the upper and lower city is reminiscent of Lisbon. Some say the Portuguese settlers tailored Salvador to mimic their homeland's great metropolis. But things don't always turn out as planned.
In the beginning, it was a very well-planned city with a very well-defined basis of development. As the years passes by, the decades passes by, the more organic and Portuguese way of building start to take form. So Salvador just grew without a real serious urbanistic plan. That's the problem. And a lot of occupations that we can say that are subnormal, like slums, started to happen, mostly in very difficult situation of inclination, of lower areas like marshes and swampy areas. We have behind me a good example. This road we can see up there, okay, is from the 50s. And people started a slum right under it. Most of them used the places behind it to excavate and put their home inside. Later on, the City Hall started a project to make sort of a urbanization project here. So they have a lot of things that got the quality of life much better for those people. You can see a lot of new homes, and it's funny because the original owners of those houses nowadays are selling them for foreigners, for other persons that are interested to live in such a magnificent view and moving to more poor places.
Although gentrification is well underway in Salvador, countless homes are in urgent need of repair. But with such a fantastic location, it's no wonder 3 million people call this city home.
The density of Salvador is due to many factors. Topography is one of them. There are areas that represent natural risks in which we can't build or live. There's also the complexity of being on a peninsula, which limits space. Studies have shown that we have no more space for housing. So the city is being verticalized, which will continue to create problems of urban mobility. The problem here is the lack of planning. The idea of building a city on a peninsula was great for protection at the time. And the link with the region called Recôncavo, where sugarcane, tobacco, and other products grow, was extremely important. It was good for the economy. The problem lies in the expansion of the city. There were no expansion policies to support the incredible amount of immigration since 1950. Industries were set up right next to the city. The very massive immigration that generated this chaos is due to industrialization. And the city is currently expanding in all directions. Before 1950, Salvador was great. But after that, this became a problem. There was no planning to support this expansion. And the topography isn't helping much. There are times when I get lost in Salvador. In the center, it's easier, but there are still places where you can get lost. It isn't very practical. Salvador has no official neighborhoods defined by City Hall, so the people make up their own rules with regards to space. I often say that we have a strong socio-spatial segregation. Salvador has two realities, that of the poor and that of the rich, but they're all mixed together, side by side.
Social classes are mixed throughout the city's neighborhoods. They're distinguished by a letter system, from A to E, A being the wealthiest.
Classes C, D, and E are classes that are going up. We live next to each other in Salvador because of the geography and the shape of the land. I can show you the classes. Those are Class C buildings, built in the 70s. Here, classes D and E, built right next to the others because of industrialization. These people had no work, and they settled any which way. And right next to that, we have the towers, which correspond to classes A and B.
The city is growing, and these high-rises popping up everywhere are proof of that. Unfortunately, a large portion of the territory isn't exactly prone to development.
This is a hard city to develop. These homes and these vast neighborhoods have evolved all over the place. They have no infrastructure because these are risk areas. The hills are so steep that the infrastructure can't be brought here. They have no sanitation. There's no garbage collection either because the trucks don't have the means to get there. When it rains very hard in Salvador, there are houses that fall, and there are people who die in these houses. All this because of the topography. That's a big problem for planning the future of Salvador.
The city was first developed along the coasts, which have long been saturated. To decongest these neighborhoods, the center of activity was moved away from the harbor to Iguatemi. But the addition of high-rises, offices, and modern shopping centers hasn't really solved the problem.
The city's challenges lie in urban mobility, not only cars, but also pedestrians. And public transportation is extremely problematic. There are many pedestrian bridges in the city since the 1980s. It was an architect's idea. There are many of them throughout the city, especially over major avenues. They were built to prevent traffic jams. The bridges are very helpful to avoid red lights and to keep the car traffic flowing. Pedestrians compete for public space with cars. And the bridges also join the different hills in the city, which helps with the traffic. The federal government adopted policies a few years ago to motivate the Brazilians to buy cars. So we have about 800,000 cars on the streets of Salvador now. So the problem isn't just in Salvador, but in all major cities in Brazil, with this policy helping the purchase of new cars. Big cities don't have the appropriate road networks. The challenge for the government is to create public transport for people so they can leave their cars at home. We don't even have a subway in Salvador. There are other cities that have subways. We hope that the state government will build a subway that goes from here to the airport.
The never-ending construction of the subway system illustrates the city's widespread infrastructure problems. Corruption and poor management tend to slow things down radically here. More than 12 years after the project was launched, the network of only a few kilometers seems far from completion. cultural vitality of the city makes it an increasingly popular tourist destination. Guidebooks may tout the city's carnival and beaches, but its genuine attractions lie in the spirit of its citizens.
Les choses sont en apparence un peu désorganisées. Est-ce que c'est une fausse impression?
That's an impression that may be true. But they say that at the end of the day, things are always back to normal, despite the chaos. It's a chaos that is only on the outside. Everyone knows his place, and it's pretty well organized, considering this kind of hustle and bustle. It can take 4 or 5 years to really understand how things work, to understand the functions of each and every one, to really see the maze that is Bahia. But again, all of this is just a facade. Everything here has its place, somehow. There is a generalized promiscuity, and it's hard to find privacy. But it's a basic element of life in Bahia. Anonymity is almost impossible because we're in a province where everyone knows each other. When we come to this market, we all have our favorite merchants. Promiscuity is due to density and geography, to the fact that there are more and more arid zones in Bahia. More than 65% of the territory is semi-arid, so people move towards the coast, towards the sea, and to Salvador. Promiscuity is a basic element of Bahia. It's also something very friendly. Families are very big, so people almost always build an additional floor for their son, who himself will add another floor for his son. So the houses are open all day. People come and go. The door with a bell, like you'd find in Europe, that doesn't really exist here. The doors are always open, and chances are there is a cold beer in the fridge and a small bean dish on the stovetop. Everything is stacked up. You don't shut your door like in an office. The door is open, and there will always be someone who will offer you things. There's no such thing as working 4 hours without stopping. You make a phone call, a coffee vendor comes by, a CD vendor. Promiscuity is a positive element, but it can also be a factor that will slow things down in certain sectors. That's why there are places that are reserved for private time, like motels. There are plenty of motels for families to spend a weekend. It allows people to find the intimate space and lets them breathe. Because during the week, people are constantly confronted with the hardships of daily life. With children coming and going, work schedules that change between morning, afternoon, or evening. And transportation isn't very reliable in terms of arrivals and departures, so it changes everything. There is a Brazilian word that all locals or visitors should know, jeito. It means getting by, finding solutions to finish something complex, finding the right approach, attack, or workaround to get it done. And the Bahians are world champions at that. It gives us a lesson. Every day, even with this apparent chaos, things are always done well, and whatever you request of someone is done. It's a way of life. No one just survives. We live. We live intensely every day, so it's more than mere survival. There is survival for people who are very poor in the slums, but even in their daily lives, they want to do more than survive. There is always this good mood that isn't present in many places in the world. Their spirit and good humor strikes us every minute, every second. He's 14 years old.
Você não vai na escola? Você vai de tarde? Pela manhã? Como que é?
Pela manhã.
E por enquanto é férias.
For now, it's the holidays. That's why he's working.
Avenida 7 de Setembro is probably the best place to feel the pulse of the city. It's the epicenter of commercial activity.
This is where everything really happens in Salvador. All sales of appliances, fabrics. All the housewives of all social classes come here to shop. It all starts early in the morning and finishes very late in the evening. It's in perpetual motion. We eat, we shop, everything goes on here. You can buy everything, especially the Bahian products made from beans and palm oil. But you can also buy fruit juices, sunglasses, anything. There are tens of thousands of street vendors in the center of the city. Many people sell private health plans, small insurances for clean teeth. All kinds of insurances, all kinds of services are offered by vendors waiting at the door of these buildings with little brochures. They're all paid by commission. Very few people here have a fixed income, so it gets the excitement going. This is the shopping area for the working class. You can find anything here.
This market street has always been the heartbeat of Salvador's economic activity. But the arrival of Americanized shopping malls has widened the gap between the rich and the poor, creating two parallel economies.
This shopping area is a popular destination. Everyone can afford these things. A DVD costs 2 or 3 reals, so less than €1. This is really for the lower classes. Shopping malls are for the other social classes. The working classes just go there for the air conditioning when it's too hot, but they can't afford the things they see in the shopping malls. It's chic, and it's well seen to meet here. This is where people have always come in Salvador. Today, it's a place to get small things, everyday purchases. If you want something that has a little bit of value, you go somewhere else. This is more of a hangout spot or a place to have business meetings. But we can also come here at night for dinner because it's a safe place. The middle class exists in Brazil, but it's difficult to exist in Bahia because the whole Northeast is the poorest region of the country. The middle class is now beginning to buy small buildings and cars. The car is actually the dream of the middle class. Transportation is chaotic. The streets are poorly maintained by the government. Schedules are undefined. There's too little competition. And unlike Europe, here we accept the car in the city. Nothing is done to get the car out of the city. You see, here people are double or triple parked. There's no real control, no fines. It's just tolerated. People come to buy something, they double park, they run in, they leave. That's how it works. There is no public transportation. Bus transportation is actually private and it's expensive. It's equivalent to the price of a ticket for the metro in Paris, but with a salary that is 10 times lower.
That's not counting the fact that users pay each time they change lines, and that can happen 2 or 3 times in a single trip. Each line operates independently, without any overall structure or system.
People here often have no choice but to buy a car. Buses aren't really trustworthy, and there seems to be no possibility that one day the subway will actually work in Salvador. It's chaos, but it is a living chaos, one that inspires life, like surfing on good vibes, and having the ability to accept others that interact with you. It's a school of good spirits.
That pretty much captures the prevailing tone in Salvador de Bahia. Its warm and positive atmosphere, its widespread good mood, remind us that underneath an apparent chaos, Bahianos wear a smile. The people here are unified by the sun, the beaches, and the thriving culture that makes its distinct social fabric.